Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hopefully, okay. I'm going to trust the chat because there's plenty of excellent people in the chat, and I know that if they can see us or not see us or not hear us, then somebody's going to say something. Let's just go ahead and say hello. We're here for episode 2 of Lunchtime is Dicetime. Hello, everybody. Everybody doing a sterling job dialing in when the world is literally melting outside.
It might just be Britain, actually, according to Mike.
Oh,
Unseasonably
no,
cool.
Europe is in a lot of trouble right now, actually.
It is on fire.
France in particular is on fire. Excellent, people can hear us. Wonderful, excellent, jolly good. Right, so today, even though the world is on fire and we're all melting and I've had to turn my fan off for the audio, we are going to talk about online play, but specifically how you manage character admin, I suppose. Is that the right word for it? In online play, I think that most people watching this stream are probably familiar with character keepers, which is how we've evolved online play. Like, I wanted to just say that when Josh and I first started doing online play, because we're really old, we started doing it, I want to say 2010, something like that, because a really good friend of ours had moved to the States. We wanted to continue role playing with them. So everybody would come around to our house and then we would live stream just their face on the giant TV in our living room. And then that's how they would dial in. And they also dialed in at like 4:30 in the morning or something ridiculous because they were in Athens in Georgia at the time. And we didn't have anything like online character sheets. We just had our paper sheets. I did try to find a copy of my Dark Heresy paper sheet to show everybody our first iteration of online play. It was the one, Josh, where I only ever amended it in pen. I used to, as the months and the years evolved, I just used different colours of pens and
It took about
things
half of a 6-year campaign for me to discover this fact, at which point I basically exploded.
Yes, Josh did explode. But we don't need to go into that.
No.
Good times. Because now we have character keepers. And I've just seen Mike saying that he has made one for Last Fleet last year. Awesome.
Thank you,
I
Mike.
was going to quickly share my screen to show people our current X10 character keeper. So look away now. I don't think there's anything really spoilery in there.
Just don't show the mystery sheet.
I'm not showing the mystery sheet. I'm just showing the character sheet. Let's do that. Because I thought that this is a live stream, but it's going to be available later on. So there might be people who don't know what a character keeper is. So I was just going to very quickly start. Can everybody see that? Yes, you can all see that. So this is the character keeper that we're using for Ex Tenebris for the Black Armored Tales campaign currently. And as you can see, it's got all our stats, it's got all of the special abilities that we've chosen. So it's very much based on the playbook model. And it was pioneered by the Gauntlet community back in the day. And what I think, yeah.
Can I say a bit about this? Because
please do
it. So I think what I want to say is, like, when I first started playing online, I didn't really understand why people would want a character keeper. We put all of our notes in just a plain Google Doc with bookmarks, and that worked really well, and I was really happy with it. And I was like, why would you want it in a horrible spreadsheet? Like, you know, kind of, I found it a bit ugly and a bit difficult to navigate compared to like a plain Google Doc. But I think I've kind of come around to it, as you can see from the fact I created this. And one of the great things about it is it does things like drop down lists. So, you know, you can basically cut out the business of copying and pasting, copying things over. It's a bit like the way that Apocalypse World invented the idea of writing. Apologies to anyone else who's done this before Apocalypse World, but Apocalypse World seems to me to invent the idea of having all of your stats and abilities written down in full on the character sheet, so you never have to look anything up. And this is kind of the equivalent, is having all of the things that you need just available in a drop-down list, including your full playbook abilities. And it's got like cool funky functionality, like you can select your loadout level and it will automatically tell you if you are over your maximum load, things like that. That's what a spreadsheet is good at, I think. And we're going to come on to some other ways of doing it, but I think that is a thing that a spreadsheet can do that probably other things won't be able to do, with possibly some exceptions. We'll see.
Well, part of the reason I wanted to share this is to say this is sort of the state of the art. I know that some people have started developing apps for their games. Thank you to our Discord for telling us about that. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But I really wanted to start with, we have been using character keepers for a really long time. And I can't remember why the conversation came up, Nick. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Why the conversation came up, but we were talking about it to Nick, and Nick had a very spicy opinion about character keepers, a very spicy opinion indeed. And we said probably ought to talk to everybody else about that spicy opinion, Nick.
Share the spice with people forever on the internet.
Share the spice.
Thanks. Thrown under the bus by my host.
Go for it.
Now, I want to say first off that I love a spreadsheet as much as anybody else. Maybe even more so. A good spreadsheet is a beautiful thing.
More than Josh?
I'll fight you for it.
Yeah. Have you ever seen those competitions where people race to do stuff in Excel? Maybe we should have one of those.
Okay, well, you'll win at that. I am not good at the sort of shortcuts and things like that. I'm a slow spreadsheet user.
Slow but beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah, and so one of the things I do like about character keepers, you touched on, Becky, or Josh actually, is that there are things that you can automate in there so that you will get, for example, a little warning when you're over your load limit. And I think if you're going to use a tool like a character keeper or like a online playroom, the character sheets in Roll20 or something, for me, in order for that to be a worthwhile exercise, it needs to do something like that. It needs to take advantage of the tool rather than just being a spreadsheet version of a character sheet. My spicy opinion is that I don't like character keepers, the spreadsheet variety. There is something about the way they look to me that my eye wants to slide off. I don't necessarily know how to navigate them. I keep finding myself, I love your work, Josh, but every single time I need to mark down I have XP on the X10 character keeper, I've lost it. I have to scroll up and down to find it. There's something about that doesn't trigger my brain to remember where things are located. And I think it's a real shame that for an awful lot of modern game design, designers, myself included, invest a lot of energy into thinking about the layout of character sheets. Like, we think hard about information design and how we can communicate things as clearly as possible, and then produce beautiful flat character sheets that are wonderful to print out and play with at the table. And up until, I think, relatively recently, kind of useless for playing with online. And that's the thing that I want to show off. Josh, go.
Well, just before you get on, because I know you're going to show us a WYSI solution that is like even better than character keepers in some respects. But I wonder, like, do you think you'd feel differently if the character keeper were laid out like the print character sheet?
Yeah, so I've seen a few that do this. I have a feeling that there is a version of the Slug Blaster character keeper that looks a bit like the character sheet.
I've just played some Slug Blaster, possibly with folks who are on this call, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, Dominic's here. And yeah, it is a bit more like that. And I did find it a bit more usable, actually, now that I think about it.
I think it helps. I mean, I think it's devoting the same attention to information design in the character keeper format that you will do in a character sheet format, I think.
And I think if I can just say, like, I think what's one of the things that's strange about how character keepers have been designed historically so far is that they only use up and down. It's like a shopping list or something. Like you have 2 dimensions in a piece of paper, but we just sort of throw that away and say, no, we'll only use that for like characters in separate columns. Everything else is going to be vertical.
Stack up
and
characters.
that does seem to me like it might be making things harder than it needs to be. Anyway, I will shut up now and let you.
No, it's a good point, because I do sometimes wonder if principally character keepers are designed from the perspective of a games master rather than from the perspective of a player.
So you can look across the whole.
Exactly, yeah. So you've got a quick overview of everybody's stats or whatever, which is certainly useful. And I know in my time I've done that. I've built little summary sheets.
And let's just also kind of acknowledge the fact that one of the things that is so good about character keepers for non-online players is that they're free.
Yeah.
Can I also say, perhaps an underexploited fact about spreadsheets is that you could create two versions of the character sheet. You could have people's individual player-facing character sheets in a nice layout that suits them,
right.
And then you could use formulas to copy it over to a GM sheet where you can see the GM can see a bit more of an overview. Don't know why nobody's done that. I guess because it's a huge amount of work to make these things, and they don't want to. But that's an option.
And that goes back to my point, I think, about taking advantage of the affordances. The a digital tool offers you. We do have some nice chat going on in the chat corner. Apologies if I missed something there. So let me share with you how I play. This is my first attempt to share a screen, so he's hoping this goes smoothly.
Drum roll.
You're sharing your screen, but I need to add it to the stage.
Aha, you're in charge.
Now done.
Wow, look at that.
And this is my current Speed Demons playtest campaign. And as you can see from the kind of top left, it's in Miro, which is a sort of digital whiteboard workspace thing. Now, Miro is the one I use, but I'm sure there are plenty of other ones available online that do basically the same thing. I don't think there's anything necessarily particularly special about Miro. I will say up front that Miro can be a paid service. I use it as a free service, and that means that I can only be playing 3 games, have 3 open boards concurrently. Any more than that, and they start to lock down boards. You don't lose them, though. It just means you can't be playing in 6 different games all roughly the same time.
Are not the boards infinitely big, though?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can, if you're willing to put up with. I have thought about creating color-coded kind of tables to put all my stuff in, and then you zoom out and find the one you want.
You can absolutely do that. Yep. Okay, let me just show off a little bit about what I'm doing here.
Nick, before you do, tell us what Speed Demons is, since you've mentioned it.
I mean, I can do.
Just real quick, yeah.
Yeah. So Speed Demons is the game I'm working on right now. It's a Forged in the Dark game of illegal mech racing. It's kind of Fast and the Furious meets the Matrix with mechs. So everybody plays a racer. Everybody races in Speed Demons, and they're all sharing a single mech between them in the game. That's the kind of equivalent of a crew playbook in something like Blades in the Dark is your mech playbook. And actually, you can get a bit of a hint for what's important in the game just by looking at the screen here. We've got, I hope you can see my cursor. We've got character sheets over here. We've got the mech sheet over here. Then we've got the district that everybody races through, kind of in the center here, a map of the district. And then we have the racing scene. So the kind of relationship map that manages the racing scene. And all of this is in one place that anybody can access at any time with a free account. And it's dead easy to use. The thing that I particularly like about it is, these are now slightly out of date versions of character sheets, but I've spent time building character sheets. I've been thinking about how the information is going to be communicated about a character or about a mech. And I can just drop those in as PDFs, and then people can scribble on them exactly as they would if they were sitting at a table. So this is the way we use them. We have a bunch of, this is a Forged in the Dark game, so clocks are a thing that pop up regularly. I use gauges in Speed Demons. So we've got a section of the board that has some spare gauges that people can copy over. But also, Post-it notes and collections of rule snippets that people need help remembering. All that can just be easily dumped into the board as and when people need it. So some of these things I've added in because I think it might be useful. But this little bit down here about how to make a bonding roll in a bonding scene, that was added by one of the players just as a reminder for them about what they need to be thinking about when they're making a bonding roll. And the Post-it notes, excuse me if I give you nausea, let you do things like building these relationship maps really, really easily. So it feels to me like this is a I've just seen that Marx has said in the chat he's never seen my face before. Hi, Marx. Sorry. So yeah, this is taking advantage of the tool. We're all online, but it also lets us leverage the information design that a designer's done with a character sheet. And that's how I've been running games online for a while now. It's also, to your point about Josh, about all of the things you could do with a character keeper that people often haven't built in a character keeper because it takes time. None of this took any time. So I just dragged and dropped a PDF into the screen and the character sheets were there. Everyone could just scribble on it however they liked. Yeah, and so in the chat, Seeds has said that it's not a virtual whiteboard. It's like a virtual tabletop with all the paper spread across and none of the snacks. That's pretty much it, right? It's all the notes, the post-it notes. I have a pet peeve about how hard it is to get a index card on something like Roll20, a kind of fundamental block for playing indie role-playing games. Is, at least last time I used Roll20, annoyingly difficult. You can roll dice on Miro. It's not the most aesthetically satisfying experience, and it won't do dice mathematics like a dice roller will. So if you're playing a game where you've got modifiers, I don't know if you can. Josh is zooming in like you can't see there. It's not going to handle
whether you can set the number of faces on the dice and things like that.
Yeah, you can. It's set here to have D20s and D6s, but you can add any normal polyhedral.
Ooh.
Pretty. But it won't do any of the maths for you. So if you're rolling 2d6 plus d10 plus 2, you're going to have to do that the old-fashioned way, or use
which
it
isn't too onerous. I mean, it's a long time since I recall Josh coming home from Exalted sessions complaining about the dice pools and adding them all up. That's where I think the dice rollers really come into their own, when you are kind of 40 plus dice in.
And also where something like Roll20 begins to come into its own, because those kinds of tabletops, I think, are principally built for playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. And so they've got a bunch of functionality that is designed for that kind of game, maps and fogs of war and spell effects and all that kind of stuff.
Nick, what do you do about a thing that I have found is slightly frustrating in Miro? I may really be talking about Mural, but I think they're basically the same thing. Is accidentally moving stuff.
Yeah.
Do you just lock everything down? What?
I don't bother. It doesn't come up all that much. I think that's one of the things that helps here is using these kinds of frames. Because if something's inside a frame, then I can just move the whole frame around.
Well, yeah, but I guess I find sometimes I accidentally, instead of scrolling or dragging or something, I've accidentally clicked on the fact it's a big frame. It almost makes it worse. I end up moving. I'm more likely to accidentally move something.
Yeah, I don't think over to you, Chad. I don't think I've got any clever solutions for that problem. It hasn't really been much of an issue for us. You can see my preference. So, for example, here we've got a pressure gauge, which is a bit like stress in Speed Demons, and you fill it up and you spend it. And my preference is when I spend it, to delete a segment, and then when I fill it up, to color it in again. The guys I play with, they actually prefer. See if there's an example. They tend to move things off. So you see here these bits of rhythm they've spent, and so they've moved them off the gauge. That's not how I would do it, but that seems to have evolved for us.
I think what is appealing to me about this, obviously I absolutely accept your point that as designers, we've put a ton of time and effort into thinking about the layout of a character sheet and for information flow, and we don't want to lose that. But I think what I'm seeing here is a couple of things. Firstly, obviously, anytime you have an ongoing relationship map, that it would be useful to have access to. Anytime you want to do anything involving mapping, actually. So I remember it was a little while ago now that we played on the pod. We played Escape from Tentacle City.
Yep.
and Ed built in a whiteboard type mirror. I can't remember if it was mirror or mural, but Ed built out a whole map that you are going to, and that matters because there's certain locations you can only get to in certain ways, and then pathways to locations can get locked off. So you need to be able to see it visually. Now, I think that one of the things that I'm seeing here is, yes, there is a lot of use and a lot of utility in character keepers when you're really utilizing those drop-down menus and having things calculated for you. And it's a shame to lose that. But the idea of having everything in one space. So I've got my character sheet. I can see my character sheet. I can see everybody else's character sheets. If I just scroll across one single app, because I'm always seeing it on just one laptop screen, just scrolling across the Miro board means I can see the relationship map or the map that our characters are in. Oh my God, I love the idea of being able to see the countdown clock in front of my face near my character sheet. That just, the kind of the theatre of being able to do that so obviously, so visually in front of everybody as a GM is also super appealing. And I guess I feel like because none of the games we're playing are going to be involving that much crunching of numbers on the character sheets, because we're not playing the really heavy dice style games, that what I'm losing in not having it in a spreadsheet, I'm gaining by having access to all of this information in a place where I can very, very easily reach it just by scrolling across the space is really appealing.
Yeah, somebody's mentioned in the chat, bearing in mind the lowest number of screens that you have at the table.
Yeah, it's always me.
Yeah, unfortunately, when I tend to play, I play on two screens, although not when we're recording the podcast. I only use one there. But you're exactly right that even if you've only got one screen, it makes life easier if you're just switching between, the images of the people you're playing with and a single thing, rather than a dice roller and a character sheet and a relationship map and all kinds of different tabs. The other thing that's very handy on that point in something like Miro is when there's more than just me in the board, there'll be little circles for each person up in the corner here. And if you click on another player's circle up there, the sheet will zoom to wherever they are.
Where their cursor is.
Yeah,
Yes,
wherever their cursor is. So if I'm zoomed in and looking at the map here, and somebody else is looking at a character sheet, if I say, hey, just pop over to the map, they can just click on me and it will bring them over to where I am.
Nice.
So I can easily pull people together.
I've just seen Mike's really good point in the chat, actually. Sorry if I'm not pulling out all the great points in the chat. I'm kind of splitting my attention, but I like what Mike is saying, in that regarding the Gauntlet, games are being optimized for online play because the designers are coming out of online play cultures and are thinking about that as a part and parcel of the way that they're designing games. But I do think, though, there's still a disconnect between doing beautiful information flows on a pretty playbook, even for the designers that are coming out of that online culture, and then putting it all into a character keeper.
I was going to say, yeah. Sorry, Becky. I find this quite funny because I don't think I certainly haven't played a campaign role-playing game in person in over a decade. And yet still the first thing I do when I'm thinking about character sheets is design something that I would print out and use at the table. Maybe I'm just showing my age or something.
I think there's something about the artifact of a well-designed, pretty character sheet, especially if it's got a bit of like concept art on it, which is just lovely, and I wouldn't want to lose. But yeah, I think that there is something interesting there, Mike, in how are we designing games now. But what I'm seeing when I'm looking at this, Nick, is somebody who is designing character sheets that can kind of straddle the two, because in Miro you can so easily mark up the sheet. Sadly, it's not in 3 different colours of pen. And isn't permanent like my old. I will try and find a copy of my old Dark Heresy Character Keeper so people can see just how arcane it got in the end and how stressed Josh got. Is it
also worth touching on Roll20? I think we sort of glancingly mentioned it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, and I've just seen a couple of people talking about the Character Keeper move to the custom apps, because I did check out those apps and I did want to look at that. So okay. Go Josh.
I suppose because we created one for Lovecraft-esque 2E, or I created one for Lovecraft-esque 2E, I should say. I initially wrote a thing in playingcards.io, which I really love playingcards.io, and I feel like one day it might be the go-to portal if they kind of build it out even more than they are doing now. When I was working on it, all it would do was kind of cards and dice. So you couldn't, if you wanted to take notes and things like that, it had that frustrating multi-screen function that you kind of like, okay, I'm gonna draw my card, okay, I'm gonna read it, oh, I'll do this one, now I'm gonna go over to this screen and remind myself where I'm writing my clues, and it becomes clunky quite quickly. I do think when you're having to use multiple windows, this is a potential problem with Miro, is like if you're using custom cards, presumably Miro cannot handle that unless you do some sort of lookup table or something.
Yeah, it might be able to, but I wouldn't know how.
Right. Roll20 is surprisingly okay in terms of its available functionality. You can create custom sets of cards. You can create. I created strange little areas where you can write your notes and use the fog of war functionality, which is designed for fighting little war game type things, to hide your notes from the other players. There's quite good note keeping functionality all on the same screen. So in theory, you'd think a Roll20 would be brilliant. You know, we could just use it for everything. The only problem is it's really glitchy. It's got an ugly interface. There's lots of things about it which just aren't quite good. Like I don't know how else to say it. Is the quality is just not there. It's the functions are all there, but the actual implementation of those functions is frustrating and prone to errors and problems, like the fog of war. Like I've heard so many people say the fog of war thing on Lovecraft Desk didn't work for them. You know, sorry guys, it's not me. It definitely does work. It's just Roll20 is a bit weird.
Yeah.
On the playing cards point, because Mike in the chat has just mentioned disliking Roll20 for playing cards. I guess we should very briefly mention playingcards.io.
I did mention it a moment ago.
Did you? Oh, was I?
Yeah, that's how we started with Lovecraft Desk, and
okay.
I think it's brilliant. I love it. It's just that it doesn't have as many functions.
It doesn't. Yeah. For a card only game, it's wonderful. But yeah,
absolutely. Also,
so I was going to.
I was just going to say that playingcards.io seems to have become a bit more ephemeral. Like your space doesn't last as long as it used to,
right?
Which is not great for anybody who doesn't play all that frequently.
Yeah, that's a genuine issue sometimes. Ooh, exciting!
I was going to just very quickly. Both John and Mike have mentioned, I think, on our Discord, and John gave me links, so thanks for that, to this and the other one. The other kind of character keeper apps. So I just wanted to kind of show those a little bit. I think these are really lovely. I'm going to pick the American because it's I'm not going to spoil it, am I, if I say it's the werewolf? But just to have a little look through some of the things that you get, which I thought you might find interesting in particular, Josh.
It is interesting.
Choose my moves, which is nice. Get my conditions and everything. So I think it is really pretty. I haven't fully looked around it completely yet, but I'm assuming, and shout me if I'm wrong about this, John and Mike, that it doesn't still do quite the same thing as the Miro board solution, as in you won't be able to look at a relationship map or a physical map or a countdown clock at the same time. I don't think that you can, but to be fair, I haven't explored enough to find out. But yeah, it is really pretty. And I'm really interested to see how the evolution of play goes. One thing I'd love to hear about, and I think Dominic's probably the person to ask, actually, maybe. But about a year ago, I first read Yazebas, and that was the game where I went, I don't know how I'd play this online without some really serious support that I bet Roll20 is not going to give me, because some of the mini games in Yazebas are really like quite visual. You do need, like, you're moving through a map you've made up out of playing cards and things like that. And I know that when it first came out, it was paired with some sort of really cool online interface, and then that died. So I'd be really interested to see how people are playing those sorts of games.
And that's,
Those kind of mini games within games. On what? Yeah, that's it. One more multiverse implementation, Marks. That's the one. And then one more multiverse fell over and it didn't work. So Casey found ways to simulate it all on Google Docs. Oh, that's very interesting.
Interesting. But this is the thing, right? Like, the more you are reliant on funky functionality, the more you then need expertise, and the more you are into kind of, someone, I think maybe Dominic was mentioning whether you can fix the bugs as a user. Well, you can. In Character Keepers, I've gone in and I've edited bits of them and fiddled with them. But it's not like, the more complex the Character Keeper gets, the more likely it is that your basic Excel user is going to struggle. And if you've turned it into an app, then it can't do anything, as Dominic rightly pointed out. So we're creating a slightly weird ecosystem, I think, where presumably the big boys with the deep pockets will be hiring experts to produce something absolutely lovely, and then if it fails, what are you going to do? Nothing, basically. You're stuck. And maybe the indies are producing stuff that's a little bit more user friendly, but perhaps a little bit less snazzy and functional.
This is towards the end of our time, but a really interesting thing to think about in the context of the future history of role-playing games. Because, of course, if you're in something like the OSR movement, you can just dig out an ancient copy of Dungeons and Dragons and play that, or use a module from that or something freely, because it was all, there was nothing that wasn't printed. It was just paper. And if you build a snazzy app that whose functionality you take advantage of to play your game, then to some extent you probably time limit the lifetime of your game.
You're saying in the after times, when AI has taken over and we're all huddled in little shacks somewhere out in the desert, we won't be able to play using our Character Keeper?
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yep.
Wow.
We'll be able to tell stories to the children born in
I can't believe you said that.
in that apocalypse about the games we played before all this happened, but we won't be able to play them.
Yeah.
On that
cheerful note, I think I'm watching this space with interest. I think that the indie world has always done super interesting things with online play, and I love the interplay between people now designing specifically for online play and what that looks like. And I think there's still a lot of evolution to go. I think that there's certainly something to be said for sometimes the lowest tech approach is actually better. Just scribbling on, just marking up a character sheet and scribbling on it sometimes can be better. But I'm very interested to carry on watching how the space evolves, particularly as we have a lot of these mini game type games. And I know that, Josh, you're thinking of making your own mini game type game based loosely off The King is Dead, and I think that's going to be very interesting. There's an interesting challenge there about how you do that online. So yeah, I think that if we've got any questions at all from the chat, then hit us up with them now. Otherwise, I'm going to very quickly pimp Advent of Adventure, if that's okay.
While you're getting that ready, Becky, if you've got questions, you can also pop over to the Discords and ask them after the fact.
Yes, I think there's a link in the notes to all our videos, if I'm not mistaken, for those who aren't already on our Discord.
There is a link in the notes to all the videos.
And keep an eye out for speed demons.
Keep an eye out for speed demons.
Watch out, because it might go past real quick.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say about Advent of Adventure? I'm just about to pop the link in the chat.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. So we this is something I created through our Patreon a few years back. A solo journaling game in an advent calendar, and there's a horrible story about how we hand cut a small number of advent calendars, and we're never going to do that again. But this time, hopefully, we will be able to get some professionally printed, which will both look a bit nicer because we've got some proper artists to do it instead of my dreadful photoshopping, and we'll have proper doors that open without us needing to wield a scalpel. So that's currently in pre-launch on Kickstarter. You can get Advent of Adventure, which is basically Die Hard if the main character were a Christmas elf and the bad guys were a dragon and its minions. You've got to sneak around the North Pole and help Santa to save Christmas. And then Advent of Abomination is the kind of slightly darker, okay, very much darker version where you've gone away for Christmas to a cabin in the woods, and you should never do that, obviously, particularly never do that on your own, and have some sort of folk horror experience as you get through Christmas, hopefully alive, but probably not. Did I miss anything?
Well done. No, I don't think so. We're currently in pre-launch. I'm excited because I was the person who said to Josh, I'm not going to swear on screen, but there was some swearing involved. I am never going to hand cut an advent calendar again in my life, especially not to a deadline for dragon meat.
It's character building, Becky.
I didn't feel like it built my character all that much.
On the subject of characters.
Subject of characters. But yes, so excellent. Thank you so much. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another Lunchtime. It's Dicetime. In the meantime, stay cool, stay well hydrated if you're in Europe in particular, and catch you later. Well done, Nick. Bye, everybody.
Bye. And now we sit awkwardly and wait for the stream.